26 people have been sentenced to death in 2024. Jeromany Latex Brown, Alabama. He is on death row for killing a police officer. The murder happened during an undercover drug operation in October 2019. Brown told the judge that he went to a house on Lavert Street to sell 100 pounds of Mary Jane. He did, however, tell jurors that he felt robbed and used his gun to defend himself. He was careful to point out that the officers never said they were undercover. He didn't know they were policemen. Marco Antonio Perez, Alabama. He is on death row for the murder of police officer Sean Tudor 5 years ago. On January 20, 2019, Perez shot and killed a mobile police officer at the Peach Place-In condominiums. Because he had missed a meeting with his pretrial services officers over a firearms charge, a federal warrant had been issued for Perez's arrest, and he was then evading the police. Testimony states that Tudor received a tip on Sunday that Perez was at the apartment complex off of Leroy Stevens Road in West Mobile while he was at home in Daphne. Perez was just 19 years old when he committed the murder. Marcus Fishburn, Florida. A judge sentenced Fishburn to death for the murder of Aisha Levi, the 25-year-old girlfriend of his roommate. When Fishburn's roommate returned from work to see his unit covered in blood, investigators were called to the Green Tree Place apartments on Princeton Square Boulevard. Investigators discovered a woman inside the apartment, who they later identified as Levi. They thought she had been killed in a struggle. Her body had been wrapped and placed into a closet-based plastic storage bin. Shortly before he got on a bus bound for Indiana, Fishburn was detained and taken into custody at the Jacksonville Greyhound bus terminal. Investigators were informed by Fishburn that he and Levi had an altercation. In the days before the murder, Fishburn consumed substances and was possibly still under the influence. Michael Colin Mitchell, Alabama. In the fatal shooting of Lavon McCreary and her unborn child, a jury voted 10-2 to recommend Michael Colin Mitchell, 43, of Evergreen, to be put to death. McCreary was shot in front of her two children, a 5-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, at the Pick and Save grocery shop in Evergreen in 2019. She was 28 years old and pregnant at the time of the shooting. Michael Harrison Hunt, Florida. In an incident that claimed the life of a teenager and seriously injured 3 others, he organized a deliberate attempt to kill a witness against him in a human trafficking case. The 58-year-old Michael Harrison Hunt was convicted of 3 charges of attempted first-degree murder in addition to first-degree murder. On April 4, 2019, Hunt organized the break-in at a residence in Cove where the victim of human trafficking who was scheduled to testify against him was staying. The intended victim managed to hide and avoid harm, but Alexandra Lexi Peck, 19, was shot and killed because she looked like the victim. Despite being shot in the throat, her stepfather, Danny Scoggins, managed to crawl next door to get assistance. Since then, he has undergone more than 60 medical procedures. Paig the Roel lawyer, Texas. He was convicted of murdering his girlfriend and her 10-year-old daughter. He strangled Otishay Womack, 30, and Kamiria Womack, 10, in April 2018, according to the prosecution. Inside their Fort Worth condo on Shandy Lane Drive, their remains were discovered. The flat had previously been visited by police on multiple occasions for domestic violence. Beginning in January 2017, the man was charged with choking his girlfriend in 2 of those cases. According to a medical examiner, the mother and daughter were strangled to death. A week following the crime, Lawyer was taken into custody by U.S. Marshals in Tennessee. Patrick McDowell, Florida. During a traffic stop in 2021, Deputy Joshua Moyers was shot and killed by Patrick McDowell. During his sentencing trial, McDowell himself urged jurors to give him the death penalty. The reason for this murder, according to his lawyer Alan Chipperfield, is that McDowell was a veteran who served in the Marines in Iraq and returned from his service suffering from PTSD. He claimed that McDowell would not be facing these accusations if it weren't for his PTSD. Brianna Toll was previously sentenced to 3 years in prison and 3 years of probation for her attempt to help McDowell in escaping capture after entering a guilty plea to accessory after the fact. McDowell entered a guilty plea to 8 counts of aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer, and injury to a police dog. After following McDowell from a local gas station, Moyers attempted to pull him over, but McDowell told Gale, a passenger in his car, he would not stop. Eventually, however, McDowell pulled off US 301 into Sandy Ford Road and stopped just short of the train tracks for Moyers. McDowell had some arrest warrants under his name, so he decided to give the officer a false identity. When Moyers came to the van to ask for their IDs, McDowell reportedly reached beneath his seat for his gun. However, when the deputy asked, McDowell said that there were no guns in the van. According to detectives, the burgundy minivan had been stolen from Jacksonville, and Moyers discovered that when checking the tag. The railroad crossing arms abruptly came to life, accompanied by flashing lights and deafening bells. In the footage, Moyers looked at the crossing arms for a brief while before turning around and being shot right below the eye by McDowell, who had a gun in his face. McDowell swiftly leans out of the van and fires again at Moyers, striking him in the back, according to the dashcam footage of Moyers. Then, as the arms descend, he puts the gas on full blast and drives across the track. The woman in the car, Gale, was released soon after by McDowell. She was the one to call 911. Richard Bishop, Florida. In connection with Patrick Parrish's death, Richard Bishop Jr. was charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of corpse abuse. He was charged along with 33-year-old Courtney Ingram, his girlfriend. After officers performed a welfare check on May 8, Parrish's body was discovered beneath his home. 9 days later, the suspects were taken into custody. Bishop said that he killed Parrish by accident after he snapped at a party. Investigators claim that Parrish enraged Bishop by making advances toward Ingram following the gathering. Despite not intending to, Bishop exploded, struck Parrish with a wrench, and struck him twice more, killing him. Bishop hit Parrish so forcefully that following the initial blow, his eyeball stood out. He concealed the body beneath the house and took Ingram and Parrish's pickup and fled. Robert Brown, Nevada. 54-year-old Robert Brown was given the death penalty by a Nevada jury for a 2012 murder. This is the first time a Nevada jury has imposed the death penalty in over 5 years. After storming into his girlfriend Nicole Nick's apartment, assaulting her, shooting and wounding her mother, and firing at a 3-year-old girl within the residence, Brown was convicted of killing Nicole Nick, 29. According to court records, Brown and Nick had been fighting just hours earlier. When prosecutors argued for Brown's death sentence during the trial's punishment phase, Chief Deputy District Attorney Jay Roman highlighted Brown's violent past and conduct against women. He was convicted of carjacking in 1998, forcing himself into his ex-wife's vehicle and using a box cutter to cut her face, neck, and arms. He was sentenced to 9 years in prison for the crime. Roman also brought up an altercation in which Brown began striking someone who didn't even defend himself when he was being held at the Clark County Detention Center. Roman maintained that after killing Nick, Brown tried to hide his identity by donning gloves and a mask. He then left Las Vegas and evaded capture for 2 years. In the 10 years it took for Brown's case to go to trial, he insisted on his innocence and dismissed a number of court-appointed lawyers. Despite Nick's mother, Esther Mestas, identifying Brown as the guy who shot her, defense lawyers contended that there was insufficient forensic evidence linking Brown to the crime scene. Since 2006, no one has been executed in Nevada. Scott Dozier, the last inmate to forego his appeals, took his own life while incarcerated prior to his execution. Sean Finegan, Tennessee. Finegan was found guilty in the killing of Jennifer Gail Paxton. Paxton's body was stored in a freezer in the bedroom for almost 8 months. Finegan then relocated it to a spot beneath his bed before police arrived to search for it, and it was discovered in early August 2020. In December 2019, investigators believe she was strangled to death. Rebecca Dishman, 26, Finegan's girlfriend or fiancée, told police that he killed Paxton by strangling her with string for a long time while taking breaks and pausing to smoke. Dishman entered into a plea deal with the Office of the District Attorney General, promising to testify against Finegan in exchange for a life sentence and a guilty plea to first-degree murder. Paxton was abducted by Finegan in December 2019 and detained in his Oak Ridge residence. There, he attacked her and essayed her several times before killing her by strangulation. Jennifer Gail Paxton was 35 years old. Victor Alejandro Godinez, Texas. On January 23, a jury found Godinez guilty of capital murder of a peace officer for the shooting death of Moises Sanchez, a Texas Department of Public Safety trooper, on April 6, 2019. After undergoing surgery in Houston, Sanchez passed away in August of that year. In addition, Godinez was found guilty on 2 counts of attempting to kill a peace officer by shooting at 2 Edinburgh detectives who were responding to his manhunt. 4 months after being shot in the head and shoulder in Edinburgh while looking into a car accident in which Godinez had escaped, Sanchez passed away from his wounds. Sanchez responded to the car accident when the driver fled on foot, according to the Texas Department of Public Safety. After locating Godinez close to the location, the trooper was shot. Renee Flores, the defense attorney, said that Sanchez's death was not caused by the gunshot wound to the head, but rather by complications following surgery on his skull. Prosecutors argued that the operation was necessary because of the gunshot. Wade Wilson, Florida. Wilson killed 2 women in a matter of hours on October 7, 2019. Wilson met the first victim, Christine Melton, at a live music club, and she was strangled in her house. Diane Ruiz, a bartender and mother of 2, was lured into Melton's car under false pretense later that day. Wilson was driving that car. She was strangled and then repeatedly ran over. Shortly after, he called Stephen Testaseca, his biological father, and admitted to killing the women. The next day, Wilson was taken into custody after Testaseca and his wife called the police. He said he would be willing to do it again to investigators. In his court testimony, Wilson's father described specifics of his telephone confession. According to Testaseca, his son ran over Ruiz after finding she wasn't yet dead, but he was unable to provide an explanation beyond the simple statement, "I just wanted to do it." Zephen Florida. 27-year-old Zephen killed 5 women inside a bank in January 2019 by forcing them to lie down on the floor as he fatally shot each one. In Sebring, Florida, he systematically carried out the murders in the foyer of a SunTrust bank. Minutes before the murders, he texted an ex-girlfriend saying, "I always wanted to kill people, so I'm going to try it today and see how it goes." From obtaining his driver's license to getting the gun used in the shooting that day to only entering the bank after a male customer had already left it, Zephen had meticulously planned the killings. He relocated from Indiana to Sebring in 2018. He enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2016, but was released after 3 months. Zephen informed the police that enlisting in the military was a way to kill people and get away with it. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.